Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our channel. My name is Anonora. I'm a registered migration agent in Perth, and my agency is Green Wings Migration. During the course of our past videos, you asked and we listened. So today we're going to discuss how to transition from a 482 visa to a 186 TRT visa. First of all, I want to give you a little bit of a background about these visa schemes in order to understand how and why we got to the point where we are at the moment. Up until March 2018, I would say, the sponsorship visa framework was called as 457 visa, and then it changed to 482 visa. During the old glory days, the 457 visa was really the greatest ticket for people to migrate, even on a permanent basis, to Australia. Basically, everyone who completed a certain qualification relevant to a certain occupation would be able to be sponsored soon after the qualification was completed. They would get a 4 years long visa, and they would be able to transition to permanent residency after 2 years of working for the same business. Now, this system seemed very easy, and at some point the department decided to introduce changes. So in 2018 is when the biggest change of all times, or at least my times as a migration agent, came into place. So the 457 switched to a 482, and it was not possible to get a 4 year long visa across the board of occupations. We started to see a distinction between the short-term skill list and the long-term skill list. So those of you who had an occupation belonging to the short-term skill list would get a 2 years long 482 visa with no possibility to transition to permanent residency through the 186 pathway. The others, they will get a 4 years long visa with the possibility to apply for PR after 3 years, no more, 2 years, of working for the same business. Then COVID came, and obviously Australia faced great challenges. And it's fair to say that it's thanks to the many migrants who decided to not leave the country that the economy kept to be steady. So in order to kind of recognize the big help that these kind of migrants gave Australia, the government decided to introduce a little variation of the transition to permanent residency. So they decided to give the opportunity for a 186 TRT visa to those people who were in Australia during the COVID period holding a 482, even if their occupation was featured on the short-term skill list. So during that time, many people applied for renewals of their 482 visas in order to achieve the 3 years of service for the same business, and then they were able to apply for the 186. This little variation was meant to finish on the 30th of June 2024, the other day, basically. But before this happened, the department actually introduced a new variation of the legislation, this time affecting positively both short-term and long-term 482 visa holders. So now everyone who is on a 482 visa, either in the short term or the long term, can transition to PR through visa 186 TRT after 2 years of work with the same business. Originally though, the 482 visa is still granted for a duration of 2 years or 4 years. So we understand that obviously people whose occupation belongs to the short-term skill list start with a little bit of a disadvantage compared to the people on the long-term skill list. The key factor to be able to successfully transition to permanent residency with visa 186 TRT is to be able to demonstrate that in the course of the 3 years before the application is being launched, you have been working for at least 24 months for your sponsor, being paid. And this is the key difference. So if you have a 482 visa for a 2 years long term, you are in a position where you cannot afford taking any day of unpaid leave. If you do, you will have to renew your 482 visa, catch up with the unpaid time, and then apply for the 186 TRT. This is something that a person with a 4 years long 482 visa does not have to do, because even if they take some unpaid leave, they can easily catch up with what's missing without the need to apply for a new visa, aka spend more money, them and the business as well. Now you may think, I will never take unpaid leave. I know I have 4 weeks, so why do I need to take more? Because sometimes life happens simply. So you may need to have to take unpaid time off, maybe because you have to go back home and look after, I don't know, a sick family member, whatever the reason is, okay? So just be mindful when you start your pathway on a 482 visa. If you are on the 482 short-term stream, be mindful that you may need somehow to renew your 482 visa. Now, we discussed the catastrophic event when you have to take unpaid leave for whatever reason, but this is also applicable if you change your sponsor. So if you have a 4 years long 482, you may change your employer. Obviously, your time to transition to PR starts from zero again, but you have more than enough time to complete a new 24-month term with the new sponsor. If you are on a visa that only lasts 2 years, this cannot happen, so surely enough, you will have to renew your 482 visa at least once. Now, let's say that you finally got to the day when you can apply for your visa, your permanent visa. When to do that? If you are on a tight timeline, because you are coming from a 2 years long 482, the department gives you the possibility to lodge within a few days of your visa expires. Now, these few days is not defined, okay? So don't think you can apply like 2 weeks ahead of the visa expires, because it's not clear what a few days means, okay? And this is also simply and exclusively a policy approach. So technically, they say, yes, we accept applications that are lodged a few days before the 482 visa expires. But potentially, if they want to refuse it because you hadn't complete your 24 months already when you apply, they have the power to do so because the law and the regulation are on that side, okay? And law and regulation always are stronger, have a stronger value, have a heavier weight than policy. At Green Wings Migration, we always try to lodge on the very last day of your visa. It's not convenient ever for anyone because it puts a lot of stress on you because you're waiting the very last day of your visa. From a procedural point of view, it may also be inconvenient for us because it may happen that your anniversary follows on a weekend. So, something that wasn't planned. It doesn't matter. It's my preference to lodge when I'm sure that the 24 months have been completed so that at least on that point the department cannot say anything to you or to us. What kind of documents do you need to provide? Interestingly enough, when we transition with a 186 TRT visa, the key evaluation is made within the nomination steps. So the nomination is again when the business must confirm the need of your position genuinely. They must give evidence of paying you according to the market rates. They don't discriminate you against other colleagues, anything that's normal. And they also need to give evidence of your 24 months of experience. So from the businesses, we will require a higher amount of documents than what we normally require in a 482 context. So for instance, the very first pay slips they paid you once the 482 visa started, the very last available, it may not be necessarily on the day that we lodge that there is this pay slip, but it may come from the week prior. Every income statement that was generated in connection to you completing a full financial year of work, the connected notice of assessment as well. Payroll statement in which they highlight every kind of leave that you have taken, whether it was holiday leave, personal sick leave, and unpaid leave. And also every letter that might have served you that changed your salary. Now, just a little disclaimer, when you are employed by a business, they don't have to always increase your salary, but if they do, it's always better to have it in writing so that we can show the department that obviously, again, they didn't discriminate you and they also recognize the higher skills that obviously you kept developing while employed by them. Another document that's very important for the nomination, it's always the full financials disclosure from the business. The department wants to make sure that the business is not simply nominating you because you're a good person, you're a good worker, but they must be needing you genuinely, and they must have the financial grounds to keep affording your salary. It doesn't mean that if the business is running at a loss, everything is doomed. But certainly when this happens, it's good practice to involve the business accountant and ask their help in order to provide an explanation about this loss, what caused it, was it necessary, was it looked after. I mean, sometimes businesses go into a loss because they made a huge investment in machinery, which will lead to an enormous increase in revenue. So there is a reason, it's explicable, and it doesn't necessarily affect negatively their ability to keep paying their employees. Nomination-wise, this is pretty much it. And then we have your visa. Now, obviously, your visa application, it's again based on your period of service with the same sponsor. So on this point particularly, we can sort of recycle whatever document the business has given us for the nomination. But from you, we will need evidence of your English, police certificates, medicals, assessment. So English is different. For the permanent residency stage, you need to show competent English, and there is no way to seek a waiver. Okay, so even if you studied for 5 years in English in secondary education or tertiary education, it doesn't make the cut. The only way for people to avoid presenting the English test, whether IELTS, PT, TOEFL, whichever you prefer, is if they have a passport from UK, American, English-speaking countries. Your dependents who are 18 and over also need to present an English test, but for them it's slightly different. It's only functional English, so average of 4.5 in IELTS and average of 30 in PT, and they can actually use schooling that was conducted in English in substitution of a formal test. You don't need skills assessment at this stage, absolutely not, because again, the transition is based on your period served working for the sponsor, but you might need registration. So certain occupations do require to have full registration for permanent residency. So make sure that you always check with your migration agent or migration lawyer whether it's a requirement for you to hold a full unconditional license in your specific occupation. Police certificates, I'm sorry, I have to say this very often, even if you didn't go back to your home country, yes, you need to provide them again. Why? Because as we know, justice systems work differently in different parts of the world. So it's not necessarily the case that you didn't have any record 2 years ago and you still don't have it now. Maybe simply at that time, your case didn't go through the courts yet, so the record didn't show on the police certificate. This is why you need to provide updated police certificates always. And the last thing is health assessment. So for the 482 visa stage, you may or may not have had to go to undertake health assessments. This depends on a certain matrix that the department has developed, but you definitely need to for the 186. This is a requirement because the moment you become permanent resident, you can access Medicare support, okay? So if you are affected by conditions would cost money to Australia, it's not sufficient that you declare, oh, I will not use the public system, I have my private health insurance. You potentially have the opportunity to use it, and they will consider it as a determining factor to give or not give your permanent residency stage. In this particular video, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go into further details about the health assessment because it's a very long topic and it can have many, different details to discuss. So we probably have a new one. But just for now, remember that, as I said, health assessment is necessary in 186 visas. Other than that, I think that's the end for this video. I think we touched all the particular details. If you feel like I skipped something and you're interested in any particular thing around this topic, just please contact us, send us an email or comment down below, and we will make sure to get back to you either directly or with another video. Thank you so much.